And welcome back to Tabletop RPG Discussions, or the Animite Tales podcast. Still not sure on that one yet. It's been a while, so we'll probably just go back into it. I've joined by Obscuracom and Sam, yet again. Hello, guys. It's been a while.
Hello.
Hello.
Certainly has, yeah.
It was like a
Storms
lifetime
are
ago.
brewing. Storms are brewing. Outside, it's very scary outside at the moment. It's very rainy.
I know it's good, isn't it? After living in a sweltering heat wave, finally so cool.
No, because then
true.
what if it's still hot, but it's also raining outside?
It's just
Sure.
molten lava coming from the sky. It's just like, it's. Actually, I did actually go outside and just, like, when it was drizzling, and just stood there for a bit, just going, very nice.
Good lord.
So, yeah, that's how hot it is. I'm just losing my mind.
You should do what I do and just constantly have a bath. Nice, cool bath.
Sam is currently
hour on
doing
the
this
hour.
podcast in the bath, so yeah.
I mean, I would have, but they told me not to after last time. Apparently, they find it inappropriate.
Who's they, Sam? Who's they? You got some other podcasts going on we don't know about?
It's just you can't actually do, like, subtweets or anything, or like some things. It's like, just somebody doesn't want me to get my dick out on the podcast. I won't say their names. They know who they are.
Not naming names. Putting words in people's mouths. Yes.
That's a very strange thing to say. Yeah, a lot of things have happened. I just got back from holiday. We sorted out quite a lot of things for Animite Tales over the last couple of months. It's been a while since we've done an update, and hopefully the PDFs of basically the rough drafts will be in PDF form on the website soon enough, and I'll put links in the descriptions as soon as that becomes a thing. The layout is getting better every day, but when it fully is online for everyone to go onto it, just as a reminder as well as a disclaimer, the game is going to be an open beta for many years. Because it's just a couple of people, and to be honest, we want to do more of a building a community rather than just specifically just trying to do a Kickstarter straight away. So that's pretty much what it's going to be. If anyone wants to send any feedback or anything like that, or obviously create their own games and stuff like that using the system, obviously we'd love to see what kind of stuff that you guys can make, and obviously kind of feedback. But yeah, once the game is out there, we'll have a lot more time. We'll have a lot more freedom to be able to do certain different videos on actual workshops and creating characters, and actually show off how to build them, so that people can actually make those characters that we've been talking about for quite a while now. So that's the first update done. Hopefully that will be done at some point this week. So by the time that we next do the Crucible of Avarice campaign, hopefully we should be up and running for people to at least see the rough drafts of all of the documents to make characters, to play the game, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Also, big changes that we got to talk about with that we came across recently with characters we're currently playing. I'm talking about Husks. We've changed a bit of that.
Yes, they have been changed a lot. So we have a bundle of different systems, a bundle of different races, and Huskonians were a... What's that in the back? Sam, are you playing a game? Shut it up.
Yes.
Ever so rude. Huskonians, they were built differently. Like, quite literally, they were built different. They didn't work under the same sets of mechanics. They had powers that worked similar to that of trades. And obviously, without any context, that doesn't really make too much sense. But basically, they're a proficiency system where the more you use them, the quicker they'd level up, and the more they'd grow. But because of the way that our system works, is each time that you get 5 levels in a single thing, either character, power, trade, or proficiency levels, you would then get an extra 10 HP, and it would allow the players to grow quickly and in later games be able to dish out a lot of damage, but also take quite a few good hits and stuff. Because again, the system is more based on power fantasy and using a lot of different things. Like there's all sorts of different abilities, techniques, and powers to use for strategy. Not just to dish out the most damage, but also to be able to, control one's own environments, whether that be social or quite very literal. But the weirdest thing about it is that like no other power works in the same way as the Huskonian powers. Or should I say, the Huskonian power system works like no other system. And because of that, it was very confusing for players who had moved from playing as a different race, like a superhuman, an anomaly, a Omegan, even a human. It just didn't make a lot of sense. So now, the way that their powers work is they still technically have 3 abilities, but instead of having it being 3 separate powers, it's one power that has 3 separate qualities: 1 combative, 1 defensive, and 1 specialized. Each quality is basically, it makes up the one power that has 3 separate functions, with their own individual abilities and downsides, weakness, tricks of the trades, and so on and so forth. As you level up the power in one of 2 ways. You either buff it or you increase the feats of it. And it will increase all 3 of the qualities in one of 2 different ways. When you get to the 10th level, you choose either to get a feat that is worth double of itself, a buff that is worth double of itself, or you can get what is known as a mutation perk, which is a final ability that is based on one of the 3 qualities. So, for instance, if you have, super strength, adaptive regeneration, and the ability to shoot out adhesive spit to make a sort of glue-like or cement-like spit, and you get to the end and you've been increasing incrementally, you've been making yourself stronger, heal faster, heal more, and even potentially having like either the ability to have it that your spit goes at a greater distance, or has it that like the difficulty checks are higher to break out of it, or even having it that like the actual adhesive can actually have healing or damaging qualities. But at the 10th level, you then say, okay, one of these 3 is getting the mutation perk. And you then decide one of the 3, and you might say, okay, well, adaptive regeneration, I'll have adaptive resurrection. And therefore it's like, okay, well, now if I can succeed with adaptive resurrection, the next time my character is supposed to die, whatever the last thing that was supposed to have been the thing that killed them, they are now completely immune to until they are killed by something else, and then that is then replaced with the next thing that they have adapted to. So instead of having it that all 3 powers level up in different ways and also end up having this whole thing of like 60 HP worth of milestones, basically like 6 or I think it would be like either 6 or 9 extra levels and buffs worth of stuff, making them even more powerful than any other race, which they already technically are when they start off, because they actually start off with a few extra bonuses already anyway. They just ended up being too unfair to every other race, and their leveling system could be very... It could be very difficult for new time players or new time players as husks. So it was not very friendly. Our system is very customizable, and because of that, sometimes there are certain things that aren't very user friendly to begin with. But Huskonians were just straight up the probably the most difficult to get your head around. So now that's been taken care of. You look at the line statements of how each of them level up. You choose one of the two different paths, and all of them are affected in one way together, and you just see how each of them fare from that change, from that buff or from that feat increase. But yeah, so that's that. It means that they no longer have like anywhere near as many starting potential for milestones, meaning that they don't end up having the highest amount of milestone potential, which means that they can end up with even more health than any other race in the entire game, which they already do, because Huskonians already start off with a bonus to health anyway because of their size, because they can be up to like 3 meters tall, which is like nearly 10 feet tall. They also get like a huge bonus as the fact that they get super stats or any extra particular bonuses to them, and on top of that they also then just get like a mutation, so like extra arms, an extremely long prehensile tongue, a tail, wings, claws, horns, fangs, stuff like that. They get that on top of then having a super stat like super strength, super dex, super constitution, the ability of having a small amount of super dex, but then also the ability of dark vision, allowing them to see in dim light and darkness. So it's, again, like they have all these abilities still. It's just that they don't have then the extra nonsensical, inconsistent, new agey power system. It now works in the same way.
It was like playing a whole new game, really. Which was kind of a problem. I mean, it was like it got to the point where Rakia was getting a bit ridiculous. Even more so than a lot, even more so for a Husk.
Yes.
So that was partly the reason. So partly I was sort of like, well, I do like that the odds are in my favor, but this is just so unfair for everybody else. And the beauty, and like you said, it's like it's easier to comprehend because I've been confused multiple times about this, and I've had way more experience with the game than even Sam has. I think, and it's like, yeah. So it was definitely the elephant in the room, and I'm glad it's fixed. And it mirrors the Omegan power system as well, which is kind of a beauteous thing as well.
Yes.
So yeah, we have something like it. Yeah, exactly, synergizing. Heaven and hell, baby.
It's a perfect bridge between the two, because the Omegan system is going to be the custom power building system, similar to unique attributes and other things like that. Like it's going to be, it's pretty much the perfect skeletal structure for it. Like the missing link, if you will. But it also does mean that like it's a lot more streamlined for players. But it also just keeps them in a nice even odds. Yeah, don't get me wrong, they're still going to be very powerful, but they're not going to have anywhere near that like unfair level of, okay, I see now why they're so strong, because their rules are different than everyone else. It's now, okay, I see now why they're so strong, because that they're a different species altogether, and their powers work in a similar light, but it now means that like they're just a little stronger because they're they're a lot more heavily mutated. And so on and so forth. It's that balance of, we always talk about the fact that like our game is nowhere near as balanced as other systems would be, because the whole point is that like there are strategies that you can use to take down opponents without always having it that you have the highest damage, or without having it that you have the advantage or the disadvantage. But with Huskonians, it was just like straight up, their rules were different than everyone else's. So the fact that we've changed that now means that there's a nice streamlined consistency, and it now no longer will take up anywhere near as much time as it would trying to get one's head around it. There are a couple of other things that we updated, but I didn't know if either of you two had like an opinion on that before we moved on.
What else did you update again?
Sam didn't like the change of the Huskonians at first.
I mean, to be honest, now that I see how it actually looks, I don't disapprove. You just have to see it in action now. It's one of those things where you can say something. Those things where always very resistant to change.
I think your biggest resistance is more to nerfing, because I have made changes where you've actually approved, but it's when I change something that theoretically means that it's a lot of work for you, or more specifically, it means that your characters aren't as strong.
When they're less good, then I disapprove.
I mean, don't worry. I think that like Leah is still going to be an absolute beast. You know, these changes not
that it really
totally
matters unless if you're planning to bring Leah back. I mean,
not really. I like Leah going off into the sunset, then realizing she really shouldn't have with Toxic.
I mean, obviously, there's always the possibility of you guys meeting up with them, but to be honest, at that point, if you didn't know how to redo the character, I'd probably just build them myself.
Yeah.
For the sake of that.
Yeah.
They'll exist in your mind.
Yeah, like Cover and all the other great characters.
Oh yeah, so we should probably talk about the other things that are actually changing then. Well, first of all, we added a much more... well, we had a very intricate time and speed system, which just slowed down the entire system way too much. We had it where it's like your move speed is in meters, and then to calculate it based on like kilometers per hour, it's like, okay, this is either every 6 seconds or every 10 seconds. And the way that we did it was like, okay, so it's every 10 seconds you're able to move this many meters, and then you then times that by 60. That's how much distance you can cover in a minute. So sorry, you times it by 6. That's how many So you time, it's 10 seconds, like 20 meters, 10 seconds, and then you times that by 6. Okay, this many meters every minute, every 60 seconds, and then you times that by 60 again, and then it's like, okay, this is how much you can travel in kilometers per hour. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's fine, that makes sense, but it's such a pain. So instead, we just went, okay, right, no more of this. Divide what your current move speed is in half. That's what your move speed is in kilometers per hour. So if you've got 20 meters, just on average, whatever, blah blah blah. That's your move speed is 20 meters. Okay, it's 10 kilometers per hour. That's how far you can move over time. So if you need to go over that, it's like when your character is running, that's how much. How far or how fast your character could go when they're running full pelt or whatever. Or how far they can travel over an hour. It's like, oh yeah, sure, no, you can reach 10 kilometers in an hour or whatever. Again, like it's that thing of like at least we're covering that sort of thing. Obviously, if DMs want to go a little bit more harsher into it, like if you're doing a very slow trudge, it could be a quarter or even a tenth. Well, mine's only 15. Okay, so it's 1.5 kilometers per hour or something. If that's how people want to do it, that's fine. It just means that you don't have to multiply it and multiply it and multiply it and multiply it before you eventually get a more quote unquote accurate depiction of your current speed calculated. And it's just halving it, and there we go. That's your move speed in the terms of like actually full pelt running, full pelt blasting off, flying away, whatever. That's just it. Vehicles have always been the same, which is just whatever their move speed is, that is also their move speed in kilometers per hour, regardless. Like if you've got a car that can go like 110 meters in a single action during a moment in combat, it's like, okay, like in a single action in combat, you can now go 110 meters away. Cool. That's now 110 kilometers per hour, which is around about like 68 or 70 miles per hour or whatever, which is fine. That's absolutely fine. But for player characters, unless if they have any perks or special abilities or powers, their move speed is based on half it. There you go, that's kilometers per hour. Leave it if it's just, normal movements and stuff like that.
That was good. No opinions on that. We got it.
Yep, Sam.
Oh, we did do that. I like that because it was like I remember we did that with the new character Utility Lily's. Was it Utility Pad?
That's not new though. That part, as I said, the vehicle thing, we've been doing it for ages. That's not new. We stated that about 3 or 4 years ago, and the only other time, other than one dune buggy that Bill made years ago, the only other time that we've ever done vehicle move speed in the last 3 years was actually, funny enough, the Bonemobile that Juice made when he was playing as what's his name, Bartholomew Bones.
That's the thing, is that that's probably why, because I didn't actually think we've ever really used vehicles, except in very abstract terms. We never really done chase scenes.
No,
Yeah, because
no.
we've relied on powers to do that. Like literally at one point, we were like powering, things through flight and pocket dimensions and explosions. Like we didn't need vehicles, really.
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
But
it's nice. It's changing pace now.
It's nice to have them. It's also nice to understand them as well. Like, okay, so you're like, say for instance, you have explosions. Okay, we'll either do it based on that's what it is. Okay, you can launch yourself 70 meters, and you can keep doing yourself. Okay, keep doing that yourself. Okay, it's either 70 kilometers per hour or it's 45 kilometers per hour, depending on how your DM is going to do it. Now, I'd argue 70 because it comes from a power, and it's literally you are propelling yourself via the force of explosions. But some might go no. And nerf it to a certain extent, but regardless, it really depends on the right situation. Which is obviously with a lot of this, but at the very least, we have it for the majority of the main thing. This is the main thing of move speed. This is the main thing of vehicular move speed, player move speed, character move speed, stuff like that. Which we
I'm glad it's written down, because there is going to be, no doubt, there will be DMs who. There's like there are DMs who like check arrows in D&D. How many have you shot from a bow?
Yep.
And there's or whenever you're doing like survival games, it's always good to have like how far can you move in an hour? Then you could say like how you've got this many hours before you're hungry.
I remember. I think it was Coin or someone else. It might have been Coin, and I'm sorry, Coin, if it wasn't. But to be fair, Coin does this a lot with me. He basically told me that like there is a difference between reloading obviously magazines and a whole thing where like the whole clip, the whole magazine, the whole set of bullets goes in as one versus a thing that you have to put them in separately. And so he said to me like, okay, well, you need a different reloading system for two different types of reload types. And so we had it was like, okay, if it's just you feed one thing into it and the whole lot is ready to go, then it's just you roll dex or finesse or something. If it's something like you have a certain amount of bullets, every so many bullets bases itself on the concept of, okay, what's the maximum amount of bullets and then the minimum roll requirement for each amount. And so it was like, okay, well, how are we going to do this? So I just based it on okay, what's the maximum amount? Okay, gotcha. Right, we know the maximum amount. Well, the minimum amount that you can reload is 1. Okay, so you get a 10 or above, that's 1. 15 or above, you get either a half, a third, or a quarter. And then afterwards, it's like, okay, so if the amount of bullets that you can reload cannot be halved, then it then goes into the next one beneath it, like a third or something like that. Say, for instance, if you got 9. Like, the gun can hold up to 9 bullets. Okay, well, it can't be half, so it has to go to a third. So you can only reload 3 with a 15. 20 then reloads the whole gun straight away. And it was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. So if you say, for instance, like you're in a situation where you have a revolver and it has 5 or 6 shots in it, you use them all up, empty the gun, and you don't have something that can instantly just reload all of them together, and you have to reload each bullet separately. It's that thing of, okay, roll finesse. I get a 12, right? You only put 1 bullet in the chamber. I get a 15 or a 16. Okay, cool. You put 3 in out of the 6. I get 21. Cool. You put all 6 in just before it's now your next action. That system was added because someone said, I don't know if it was Coin, but it was someone who said the reload system needs to have 2 differences.
It does sound like Coin.
It might be, but it also might not be. I remember him telling me, "Oh, you should have it that guns can do more damage by technique." And I'm like, the most I can give you is 1.5 times, because at the point of dealing more damage with guns, you can just build them to do more damage. Whereas having techniques where you can do more damage, I feel like you shouldn't be allowed to have a technique where you can fire a gun and it can do 8 times damage. Like I feel like 1.5 is best that I can do, because like a crit shot or something like that. But definitely not having it where you can add multiple of the dice. I feel like at that point, just have it where your gun can just do a certain amount, because you've built it to have more starting dice.
That was the thing of that. I remember at one point, I'm pretty sure it was going, he was complaining about the time limit, the time thing. It was like, you said it was a minute.
Yes.
Full, and he was like, well, why can I only do like one action if it's a minute long? Not to make this the coin, not to make this the coin session that we talk about and behind his back.
No, absolutely not.
Nah.
You know.
Well, it's not the first time it's been brought up to me. To be fair, it's just
to be fair, yeah. I mean, to be honest, when we're in the heat of the moment, I will bring up some, I will say some silly things, but it's like, I can do it in a minute. So I can't exactly complain on that front, because I will be like assuming things.
The way that we've done it is we've just basically stated, okay, a thing that states that it lasts for only a minute in combat is one whole rotation. I don't care if a rotation is 5 people doing things that are all like less than 3 seconds, where they all just fire guns randomly really quickly. If a whole rotation is done, that's it. I'm not having it where a minute is just like, okay, well, how long technically would a rotation be if there are 7 people and then 3 of them no longer can fight and now there's 4 people? I'm not going to do time calculations. So we just did it where it's like, okay, in universe, this is only taking a couple of minutes, but if you have a time limit that is now placed into the actual combat scenario, it's now, the clock on it is now running down faster due to it being in combat. Why? I'm not going to create an in-law reason. I'm just in-game for the sake of the sanity of the DM. That's there for them to just be able to go, okay, you got 4 minutes, but because you're now on combat, that's now four rotations in combat. Because if you had it as like, oh yeah, it's 10 minutes, and it's like, oh well, a single rotation of combat is like about 10 seconds. That ability is never going to run out of time. Like, that ability is just never going to run out of time. And if there are abilities that you can keep rolling for them or somehow build them back up, no. Like, there's just no way that will ever run out. Oh, well, what's the point of a time limit then? Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, there are abilities that we've created in the past, like, for instance, Night Mode and Paladin Mode, and Bill has a couple of different abilities that he has to keep rolling for and stuff like that. So, like, well, as long as the user keeps succeeding, what's the point of even having this arbitrary time limit concept? And it's like, well, because they could fail, or because they might want to run out the clock, and also the factor is that like there are other things and other situations that come down to it, because again, it is a rolling situation, like a dice rolling situation, where someone could fail the dice roll, and then you're now having to deal with something else. Or the fact that, the time limit could very well help them in and outside of combat. And there's a lot of different arguments that you can say for either side, but we just went and said, no. the time is going to be different because it's just easier to help DMs not go insane.
Yeah, and that's the main thing, I think, with this game. I think most of these updates is just like ease of use for both players and DMs.
Yes.
Which is what you need in a game. And, it's... basically, that's the main draw, I think, of this game, because, it's hard to wrap your head around a lot of tabletop RPGs anyway. So just to have it so we're like, oh yeah, we can do all of these things, but I don't know what to do, is not a good thing.
That's something that is quite tricky to get your head around at first. It's like, how do I make a new ability without pissing off my DM, or without basically accidentally cheating or unpurposefully cheating? Like, how do I do this where I can either avoid it or get into it, and how do I stop for people from doing this as a fellow player or as a DM? How do I do this? And obviously that can sometimes be tricky. Thankfully, we have created a bundle of different rules and systems and stuff, 2 of which there are actual parts in the rulebook that we currently have at the moment. One of them actually says, like, it is up to the narrator's discretion, like the DM's discretion, as to whether or not something is is considered a feasible equivalent downside, downgrade, or drawback. Like, for instance, you could have an ability where it's like, yeah, I can do 4 times damage in this strenuous form where I'm like pushing myself to the absolute limits, and you find a way to make the downsides pretty high or pretty hefty. So therefore, like, you can take away some other downsides and stuff like that. And it's like, oh yeah, it's just harder to roll for, but because I've got really good modifiers, it doesn't matter. And it's at that point you're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna need to give you at least one downside, because otherwise this doesn't have any drawbacks other than just get a good roll, and you can already do that. And as myself, I think I'm a lot more. I'd say I'm a lot more generous when it comes to abilities like that. You guys have made quite a few techniques that I don't think I've given you too many drawbacks or recoils or downsides for. Like, obviously you have them.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you have.
Sorry.
I think you haven't. Yeah. No, I think you haven't actually do it, because I'm always expecting more downsides. Like, I always tentatively say, "Can I do this?" And usually you're pretty sensible. It's like, okay, just have it as it has to be like a plus 15, etc., which isn't so bad, So I'm like, okay, but usually it's very tentative, because I keep thinking, well, if he says no, and we can work on it. But most of the time you are pretty reasonable and generous, I think.
What about yourself, Sam? Do you have
usually you're good enough. Don't get too mad when I offer something impossible.
I think I do sometimes scream quite a lot whenever I get a message from you saying, "Hey, can I just have this ability that blows up the planet?" And I'm like, "No." And you're like, "Okay, can I have this one ability that can I have this one ability that makes me invincible forever?" I'm like, "No." And you're like, "Okay, well, can I just have this ability where, like, I can throw my weapon?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Into the sun and bring the sun down." Okay, Sam. All right, we're done here. We're done. No.
I mean, that was one time, and it wasn't a weapon.
The fact it happened one time.
I
that one where you had that one? No, I remember that one where it's like you wanted to go, "Can I have a special item?" And you were like, "Yeah, I want a spaceship." I was like,
that for me, I think I genuinely needed to have a break away from any of your Sam nanigans at that point, because
it is a miscellaneous item.
Could I have a miscellaneous item? Oh, okay. Well, what is he going to ask for? Is he going to ask for, like, a bag of holding? Is he going to ask for, like, I don't know, a ring that gives him an extra couple of bonus points of power? Even, I don't know, a gun that shoots lasers or something like that. I don't know. Even, I don't know, some kind of, like, cloak of invisibility or nullification sunglasses where you can see through anyone's powers or whatever. What is he going to ask for? Can I literally have a space station the size of a planet or something like that? I was like, no. No, you cannot. No, you absolutely cannot. No in hell.
I remember exactly. It was like a spaceship hand. That was a spaceship.
It was a spaceship, but it was like it was the shape, and it was the shape of a hand. And no, a million times no.
I mean, I gotta commit. I will say this: nothing ventured, nothing gained. I was still, I was just thinking, like, there's no, like, Sam, there's no way he's gonna say yes.
I
want to see what happens.
I had to take a break because of the sheer surprise and rage I felt because of the amount that you wanted it. I was almost like, there can't be any way that he thinks I'm going to say yes to this. And the fact that you're like hardcore, like, yeah, definitely, absolutely. Like, why not, Joe? And I was like, I want I need to know that you aren't. I need to know that you're joking, Sam. I actually do remember holding my head and just going, "Please tell me that you are joking." And you're like, "No, I think I could do it." And it's just like you're trying to come up with the explanation. I just would not hear it because I was like, "No." There was no other thing that I could say other than just no. I don't think anyone has ever asked so much of me. Other than one time, someone literally didn't even ask of it. Actually, they just said, "Yes, I have a fully capable, high level maintenance person with like full on, highly upgraded cybernetics that they give me for free." And they can send it to me instantaneously on the same day, even though that they're on the other side of another country. And I was like, no. At the table, I just went, no. Like that's too much. And you didn't ask. It was a few years back. It was.
Oh yeah, it was ages ago when we had
Just-
like doing the cybernetic system.
Oh,
I didn't
that
do
was
that
a-
actually,
that was
but
a-
it was
that was
like
a
it
thing
made
that
sense.
happened.
Yeah.
That actually gave me like genuine PTSD at one point. I was just like, why do people ask so much for me? And I felt like a dick. I always felt like a dick because I was always saying no. And then I realized, no, it's not me. It's just my players just want always too much. And the weird thing is, right, the abilities in that campaign, you would have thought that because I was saying no to that, I was saying no to everything because I was just overly zealously trying to overcorrect. Like everyone gets a no at one point. And weirdly enough, this was in the same campaign that I let a character legitimately have a MacGuffin ability that once a day they could go, "Hey, I know someone that could help us out in a situation similar to the situation we're in."
That campaign.
It
Yeah,
was that
the
campaign,
MacGuffin.
yeah. And I want to point out, I would still allow that kind of an ability for one character in every single game over allowing a character to start off with a bloody space station or a fully absolute zero strings attached upgradable station that is literally specifically built for them. Basically, like perfect Tony Stark. Like, oh yeah, I can just have everything for me. I don't need to do anything for it, and everything is max level. Like that. I said no to, but I actually allowed someone to have the MacGuffin of going, "Hey, I know a guy," and then just the perfect ability to just get anyone in or out of a situation where it's like, we have no leads in this big detective case. Well, thankfully, I know a guy that is actually a pretty good detective. Hey, we are in the middle of nowhere, and we have very little cell service. Hey, I know a guy who might be able to help us around here. Like those kind of abilities, I found hilarious. Like at one point, it was like you guys got into a lot of trouble. And it was like, well, we need to get to the other side of the city. I know a guy, he's got like this monster truck bus who can take all of us to the other side of town, and it will only take us about 15 minutes to get there and about 5 minutes for him to get here. And that
I think you
that
made
was
him
just
Shaggy
funny.
from
It
Scooby-Doo
was always
as
funny
well.
to see what kind of weird stuff that we came up with.
It was the thing is as well that did have limitations.
And sometimes it's just a weird thing. Going on to another update before we get down the trying to pull myself out of this bloody rabbit hole. Another update that we actually had was, funnily enough, something to do with the like we were talking about things that need to be written down. Well, one of them that is actually hopefully going to be written down fully and finished at some point. Probably more than likely is not going to be written down and finished by the time that it's that stuff is opened to the actual what do you call it? It won't be opened to the website just yet because it's a very complicated system. Cybernetics, robotics, and power armors now all have a different durability system to gadgets, technology, and miscellaneous items and armor. The reason for this is because technically cybernetics, robotics, and power armor all technically sort of work in a similar way to health now. So basically, it still has a durability system, but their health now bases itself on you have starting durability for an item. And its starting durability basically means that every time that a cybernetic, robotic, or power armor based object is leveled up, regardless of what other bonuses that you're going to give it, each level it increases its durability by 1 times of its original self. So if the durability started off at 30, every level it will now increase by 30. So at level 1, it starts at 30. At level 2, it's now 60. By the time that it gets to level 10, it's now at 300. However, the auxiliary health for all of these things will still work under the same circumstances as durability durability. So auxiliary health for these will still work as durability, meaning that super stats, superpowers, and other things like that can multiply their damages against them. And this brings me to the next thing, which is durability multiplication. Super strength already has an effect where each +1 increases it by ×2. So if you have +3, by that time you have ×6 damage to durability. Well, there's now going to be another thing added where it basically means for every +1 to SP or superpower, the modifier that you use for activating any of your superpowers, basically whatever number that is, that will actually also be the multiplier. So it starts off being the fact that like 0 and 1 are basically just the same, but then when you get to +2, you can now do 2 times damage to anything that is considered durability. By the time that you get to the finalized +10, which is the highest that you can go without skill harmony, you can then do ×10 on durability with any of your powers. And finally, if you get skill harmony at maximum, you can get anywhere between 11 to 15. That basically means that you can then do 15 times your original damage on top of that. This basically means that Rakia, who has +2 and is also a Super Dex user, it actually basically means that Rakia does ×4 durability damage, due to the fact that Super Dex at +1 all the way up to +10 basically just means that the user has ×2 durability damage. Because of the extra +2 SP, that now brings that to a lovely ×4 durability damage, specifically for Rakia. So yeah, it's basically a win or lose situation. Yes, they're going to get more durability. Yes, it's going to be classed as auxiliary health. So if you're covered in power armor, then it's going to be considered auxiliary health. Yes, that's going to be nice. It's going to be great. But it also just genuinely means that someone can just tear you open like a tin can if they have the right abilities or the right powers at a high enough level. Obviously, however, if you make abilities and if you make objects strong enough at the beginning, where their starting durability is very high, it basically means that they can end up having up to hundreds and hundreds of points, because the whole point is that basic weaponry, unless if they're specifically designed to take down robotics, cybernetics, or even full-on suits of power armor, they're not going to really tear through it anywhere near as easily as someone who has the ability to bend reality at the snap of their hands, or actually literally hold up and lift up mountains with a single arm. So obviously, we've had that. It's also going to be a little nicer, because it then means that you don't have to worry about, what's the durability system, what's this, what's that, it's just okay. Its durability is your auxiliary health, but now there are more possibilities for other opponents to have higher multipliers of durability damage. Because again, power armor can be very good, very overpowered, especially if you have the right abilities or just the right build for it. You can basically make yourself incredibly resistant and durable and pretty much unstoppable in the right circumstances. So of course we need to have countermeasures for and against it.
It's all good.
Is anyone but
I do like the silence.
What did we call him? It wasn't Lex. It wasn't Lex Luthor, but it was a character I made. That was
anything to add to that?
Okay, are you actually hearing Sam at all?
Can you hear me, Joe? Oh,
sorry, I just realised something. My headset was turned all the way down for some reason. Sorry, what were you saying?
So there we go. Yeah, because we were talking the whole time, and we were just
being so rude.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, has anyone but I can't remember what he was called, the Lex Luthor character I made.
All right.
Oh, Lyra Arden, yeah.
Lyra Arden.
Anyone but him actually used power armor?
Technically, there are 3 characters that I've known that use it. Lura Arden is the only player that I know who has used it, but you're not the only player who's used a similar system, because obviously Cybernetics, Alfie played as a character with Cybernetics at one point. But the other one is also a character... the Cosm, a lot of the Cosm have power armor. You fought them in the villain campaign, but also Celerity, who's a character that I won't really go into too much, but is a character with power armor as well. Who's, funny enough, in one of the modules.
Mm. Oh yeah, we also had sort of like a bunch of enemies that I defeated, with the power of vomiting.
That's what I meant in the villain campaign. Yeah, they were in power armor.
Yeah.
So
we have seen a few.
So yeah, they that's how their system works now. The durability and auxiliary health system. The final thing really is So what? How do I put it this way? There's a new damage type, but it's not new, but it is new. It incorporates more things. Oh, my Alexa's just gone off. There's a few new things that have been added. Hang on a second.
I know about this actually.
Hang on a second. What is going on? Hang on a second.
It's the machine uprising.
The third Terminator movie. I could just see the missiles coming at us now.
I must say, this technology has been against us, this podcast, because there's
I was
going to make a dope political reference there. But
I've just turned it down, but for some reason it's still playing. But I don't know what it is. I think it's something of Siobhan's. But yeah. What was I saying? There was one power that was really bugging me for this. So there was a power in Hydrokinesis. One of the abilities, you can either have liquid manipulation, which literally allows you to control any liquid rather than just water. This includes blood or any other particular things that have become liquid, including, I don't know, stuff like gallium, which is a metal that is liquid. But anyway, there's liquid manipulation, yay! But then the other ability is something like, I think it's called hydro temperature manipulation or something like that, or hydro temperature kinesis or something, where basically you can only manipulate water, but you can manipulate water into any of the 3 states of matter that it can appear in. Solid as ice, liquid as water, and then finally, gas as steam. You can heat water up and cool it down, meaning that you can do ice damage, like cryo damage for ice, physical damage with any of the different ways that you can manipulate it. But we were really stuck on what exactly the damage type would be if you boiled it. Like you heated it up and created steam or just hot boiling water. What the heck would that be? For ages we just said, it's fire, but it can harm and burn pyrokinetics. Like anyone who just has a fire resistance, it just ignores them. But then we were like, it was always, we never really knew what we wanted to do, and we had another damage type, which is lava damage, which is specific to only specifically lava. And for so long, we were just wondering what exactly could we do. And eventually, yesterday, I was talking to Kane about this, and I said, there's no way that we can keep it the way that it is. It just doesn't make sense. It's not really balanced right, and I mean, how annoyed would you be if you had a character who had lava resistance or lava, say for instance, you were Smaug from Smaug from Lord of the Rings, you had the dragon ability and you had lava resistant scales, and someone burns you with boiling water just because of the technicality of the damage type. It's fire.
I'm melting.
I'm melting. It kind of would annoy me, and at the same time, it's okay, well, we can't call it lava. And it was, hang on a second, there's other things that can melt, or can boil, or can heat up as a liquid, and scald, or boil and burn and melt, because that they are molten. So we changed the name from lava to molten damage. So you now have fire, corrosive, and molten in the terms of stuff you can get burns from and stuff. Oh, you can get burns from lightning and energy damage, but So we now have molten damage. which now means that like lava mimicry users, they get molten damage. That's the type of damage, but the element that they generate and manipulate is lava and magma. And then you also then have dragons who have secondary resistance, which allows them to have molten resistance. This means that it is for lava, magma, molten metals, molten rock, molten plastic, boiling water, boiling oil, stuff like that. From any of those different things, it is just the concept of a heated liquid, or a substance that is so hot that it has become a molten or heated liquid, and it basically keeps the user from resisting that sort of thing, because there are different types of burns that you can get, and something can be fire resistant, but not necessarily resistant to being scalded or boiled. So we changed that. But yeah.
Oh, we got.
That makes.
Is there more?
That works.
I mean, any opinions on that, Alex?
No, I just like the name Molten.
Yeah,
that's a good name for a type of damage, and I quite liked it. And I was like, oh, all right, cool, yeah. I never really thought about it because I never really played those characters, but I'm like, yeah, that would be kind of annoying, So, but this kind of plugs that hole of it, and also I get to say molten damage, which is much cooler than just fire damage.
absolutely.
So I'm happy.
I think the issue that I had stemmed from just the fact that, like, how annoyed would someone be if they had this and it's like, oh, I've got like a bucket of boiling water and I throw it on you and it's like, oh, well, I have lava, resistance. It's like, oh, well, this technically, counts as fire and you don't have any of that resistance lying around. Or even you're a lava mimic. And you have this you'd have this ability of like fire immunity and lava immunity or lava resistance, whatever. And it's just that moment of like someone is able to harm other fire users by the fact that they can just get boiling water and throw it on someone. And it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but what? Shouldn't it be fire? Or is it lava? But it's not lava because it's water. So at least if we say it's molten, then it incorporates everything. So obviously that's why we did it. It's just a nice little addition to it. I think also we have changed a few other things. These are just a few little off-sided mentions, which was effigy animation. Ages ago we gave it a buff because effigy animation had like the ability to like bring things to life and help you and all this lot. Those have not really changed too much, other than the fact that you can get a little bit more health. With another ability that we also just recently did, we also had the ability under water mimicry, stay hydrated, has now been buffed. Originally, the way that it worked is you had a stockpile, and every time that you got you got a buff, it would increase the amount that you could have in your stockpile by about 2. And I think you could start at like 8 or 10 points. And later on, I was like, okay, yeah, it just doesn't really work, because the whole point of stay hydrated is it's kind of that concept of like, I know that the two of you haven't seen Naruto, but there's a character called Suigetsu, and he's from this clan of different people who have like this weird ability where as long as they're hydrated, they can get hit by physical attacks and their bodies just become water for the for infinitesimal moment that are being struck by an attack. And so the idea came from that idea that like a water mimic doesn't have to be in their mimicry mode to be able to have that ability. So with stay hydrated, it was that concept of as soon as they get hit by an attack, even if they're outside of their transformation, their body becomes water to take the brunt of the amount of damage that they should be taking, and then their body immediately restores back into its original form. But it would only work for physical or spatial attacks due to the fact that it was those were the only two things that the user could actually resist whilst inside of their mimicry form, because it's like that's just how it goes. But originally,
I thought that was an aqua. I thought that was a Hydra Man thing. I didn't think it was a Naruto thing.
Oh no! It's like it's all over the place for different abilities. Like it was the main place that I saw it in was in Naruto, but yeah, there's a couple of different ones like that. But yeah, we had it, so originally every buff was only +2, but it just seems really weak. So instead we buffed it a bit, so like every buff that you now take, if you have that perk, increases it by 5 points. Because late game, if you have that perk and nothing else, you would have the ability to have it at 25 plus the original 10, so 35. But late game, 35 points of physical damage is actually pretty easy to accomplish via most people. I mean, just throwing this out there, we currently in the party have 3 people who can almost do 5d10s of damage. So that's an average of 25
Absolutely.
and a maximum damage of 50. So...
And that's not even counting all the modifiers that we can have on top of
or
that.
willpower, but let's not get overcomplicated with that.
As I was just gonna say, I think modifiers alone reach 35 for some people.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, like Rakia alone can do a minimum of 19 damage and a 21 damage and a maximum of 66 damage. So I mean,
And that's not accounting for my abilities that double that damage either.
Yeah, or half it, or add an extra half to it, or anything. So yeah, there's a lot there. It's just ridiculous. Also, we changed the thing that happened with Felix's character. So, emotional empowerment have an ability at level 9 called Outrage. Outrage basically means that the current amount of people that are currently within combat upon activation of the ability, you count all of them up, but you don't count yourself. You add them all to a tally, and that tally is the amount of attacks that you're allowed to roll for. You roll for the amount of attacks, and you attack a person, then you attack the next person and the next person. You can go between 2 different opponents, and you can choose them. However, when you run out of foes, and you still have points left, you now have to roll willpower to either break out of it or to attack a specific other person. Otherwise, you fail, and you attack the closest person, regardless of whether or not they are friend or foe. Originally, it was you just kept swinging until you land all of the hits. Now it is you just roll for the amount of tallies you have, because otherwise, if someone is able to perfectly dodge but never actually land an attack, or whatever, it's basically an infinite loop, like a literal recursion loop, so...
I honestly don't know how that even got past the board, that could just happen.
Because nobody ever used it, and there's 63 other powers that exist, and I was just like, yeah, that seems fine. That seems fine.
Was that in the rules, or was it just like not written down?
No, that was in the rules, like straight up. I've now rewritten it because it said until each hit has been landed. If an opponent dodges and the player does not hit something, they then keep going until it doesn't count as an actual piece of the tally. Now I've just said every time that the user rolls for an attack, it takes off from this tally. But it will not go on to someone else's turn until either the outrage is over. Well, it will not. It will. In other words, their turn will not end until either the outrage is over, in the terms of they run out of tallies, they go unconscious, or they are able to roll willpower to stop it. Either way, once outrage is done, you lose all but 1 point of your stockpile, and you cannot use outrage again for 24 hours. The only thing that I changed was the fact that it's not the whole thing of like every time that you throw a punch, it doesn't count if the opponent dodges or if you don't hit anything. I've now had to change that to every time you roll, regardless of success or fail, you take off one of the tallies.
That makes more sense. That's more fair.
Yes, yeah. I mean, look,
a lot more fair.
Regardless of that ability alone, you can get anywhere between like 5 all the way up to like theoretically hundreds of attacks in a single turn. I say theoretically because I think it's based on within the user's move speed. So I mean, unless if literally, like say for instance, unless if you were able to literally fit 100 people in combat within a 30-meter radius of the particular person who's using it in question, I doubt that you'd ever be able to do that. And at that point, I feel like it's really down to you if you're specifically counting every single one of those people and go, yeah, sure, you're allowed 100 attacks. I feel like
what you're saying is what you need is Speedster and that.
To be fair, yes. Although, to be fair, I feel like after a while, you would... Because it's based on who's counted in combat. So it's not who's within just your move speed, it's also who's counted in combat. So that means that they're not unconscious, they're not dead, and they are not aggressive to specifically anyone within your current proximity. So that would mean that they are neither a player who is fighting alongside you, nor are they an enemy. So as long as they're neither of those two things, they don't count. So thankfully you don't go like, oh, there's about 3 or 4 snails just on this wall next to me. They're also classed. And there's about 3 infants that are currently, in a bar, strapped into a shopping cart with a civilian who's running away from us all because they're trying to get out of here. Oh yeah, they're classed here as well. Yeah, there's just a few more enemies.
Not the Women's Institute picnic.
Those look like pretty aggressive snails to me.
Now, in all honesty, if those snails did, however, shoot some kind of acid at you and you saw that as some kind of a threat, at that point they'd be classed into it. But at that point,
I'm just really afraid of snails.
At that point, it's more just a question of meta, isn't it? Like, oh, well, they also get a turn during combat, so at that point, I now am allowed to add them to that particular thing. But yeah, either way, it's changed. It's now a lot better. It's now a lot smoother. It now works rather than just giving a person an infinite recursion loop until they land all of the hits. Because Felix ended up with like 11 or 12 attacks or more, I think. I think it was like 14 attacks. And I was just like, okay, so what do you want to do here? Well, I'm now winding up for all of them, and then like failed 3 of them, but still got to go. So technically he got to roll for 17 attacks in 1 turn. And yeah, so obviously, removing that. It is a really great ability because, say for instance, if you're fighting a boss, and it's just you and your party versus that boss, you can count up your entire party except from yourself, and then you can count the opponent. Tell everyone to run away, and then activate your ability. And then as you're running towards him, everyone else is counting, you hit them, and then if everyone has the possibility of being able to get out of the way in that particular moment, you're then stuck, you're then stuck with this guy, the boss, and the boss is now stuck with you, and you've got a tally of anywhere between 3 to 5 or 7 hits. So you can just wail on this opponent, keep going and going and going and going. Aura style. So that's nice and clean.
Or just like it's like a TPK ability as well.
Yes, I mean if you turn against your party, it's definitely going to be a big TPK ability because you can go bam 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then again at that point, if they haven't been completely taken down by those attacks, you can do it again. If there's more people within proximity of the combat that actually class as combatants, you could straight up like betray your entire team with that ability. Although there are 2 big downsides to it, which is 1, the opponent can be knocked unconscious and then completely ruin that whole ability. 2, if everyone is able to get out of your move speed, it ends the ability. Because you can't move close enough to get to them. And 3, nullification. If you're able to somehow stop the opponent and nullify them, their powers disengage and therefore outrage is ruined. Can't use it for another 24 hours, and your stockpile empties if you've been negated. So, yeah, I'd say that's a bit of a bummer. I think obviously next time that we do this podcast, which I'm still not too sure whether or not we'll call TTRPG Discussion still, or whether or not we'll just call it the Animite Tales podcast. I think we'll probably discuss the stuff that has happened in the sessions because we are now running over time. But we'll definitely have to go over some of that stuff because a lot of stuff happened, and I really, really am glad about a lot of things that happened. I'd say the 2 highlights, Felix finally got to do something.
Oh boy.
You two didn't take up the entire session second half by trying to go off on a 3-hour shopping tour because you guys often do this rather than using downtime to do it. And the other one was...
I didn't have downtime, did I?
And the other one was... No, you didn't. But you started off with a lot of stuff. And the other thing that I would say was another highlight was I actually got to have it that the characters actually got to do something before Bill just went nullification, and no one could do anything, and all of the stuff.
Oh yeah, the mystery of Bill's gun.
Yes.
Yeah, we unlocked one of the mysteries of Bill's magical gun.
One is the Snake Eye, which seems to have an effect that stops him from moving. He's also discovered number 6, which is a symbol of a house, and number 2, which is a symbol of 2 cards on top of each other. So he's figured out the number 1, number 2, and number 6, but he has still yet to find out what 3, 4, and 5 do. So that will be quite an interesting thing. There's also like another secret thing that's hidden within the gun as well. There's also a secret mechanic hidden inside of that gun, which I'm wondering when it will actually happen. I'm surprised that it hasn't happened with Bill, but we'll see. We'll see soon enough. There's also a lot of stuff going on with a lot of special weaponry and stuff like that. I've got so many things that I want to do, but obviously we haven't really got anything confirmed. Also, we're going to be doing some more casual streams at some point on the other weekends. So we might be doing those when we can. We cannot guarantee them because obviously there's like 7 people's different schedules that we have to always get to. But if we can ever do those on Fridays or on Saturdays, then we'll do them. If not, then we won't. But either way, the original streams will be still staying on the Sundays, every other Sunday, fortnightly. And then maybe if we can get enough people to do Crucible of Avarice in between on the weekends in between, we will, but again, no guarantees yet. But yeah, I think that's everything, unless if anyone else has anything else to say.
No, I think that's all good. I mean, other than just other things that are not game related. Today Norwich chased off some Nazis outside the forum, which is very nice. So yeah, that's a good thing.
Okay.
Hooray! Yeah, that's literally that. I don't really know if that's politics or not, but it's just like I'm just saying that that's a thing that's recently happened.
News
and
bulletin:
that's nice.
Something happened in Norwich.
It also rained.
It's been so hot.
Anyone defeating Nazis is good. Hey, and we're talking about superheroes. So,
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's nothing more Captain America than defeating some Nazis.
I don't know what else to say to that. Like, fair enough. Like,
I'm trying, okay?
No,
I'm trying to find something to say.
That's an uplifting thing. And if you if you have anything to say and it just so happens to be something as uplifting as that, I guess who am I to judge? I guess I don't even know what to say anymore. Yeah, fair enough. I guess the only other thing that I was going to say was all of these updates have happened over the span of like 2 months, but the biggest ones that I've probably taken the most time to discuss have been very recent in the last month. It's thanks to you two, and it's thanks to everyone else who's able to do these that I'm able to actually go forward. It's one of the reasons why we're doing this, why we're opening up to the community, for the website, because that we want this game to be more of a community, that people can create their own stories, build their own builds. We can share like different character ideas and character builds and styles and stuff like that, and like all of the different ways that people can make their own homebrew and make their own systematic changes using the system that we've got here. Building their own things that they want to build, doing their own things that they want to do, telling their own stories, or even living out their own character stories in the modules that we bring later to the table. We've already got 2. One is called the Super Society, and the other one is known as I think the working title is I think it's called the Hungry Desert or something like that. The Hungry Desert of
Emjanar Linear.
Yeah. Those two are the only ones that have so far have like mostly nearly been done. The Super Society is pretty much sorted out. I just need to sort out some stuff due to the leveling in that, because that's supposed to be a very low level, like starting 0 level campaign. And then the other one is supposed to be sort of be anywhere in any of those parts. To be fair, the Emjanarlinian one. The other campaigns are still sort of taking their time. Mostly because that, like, technically the one that you guys are currently doing in the Land of the Sunken Moon theoretically might actually be the actual one for the Land of the Sunken Moon, but I'm still not sure yet, because I did actually have another module for that one, which was I think it was called False Idols. I think it was called like False Idols and Heroes Aplenty, and it's based on the idea that like heroes don't technically exist in Emjanarlinia. In the Land of the Sunken Moon, because like one half do like powers, but they're currently having an issue where they don't believe in the concept of Western superheroes, and yet there are characters or people that are dressing up and being superheroes, like the usual, I'm Superman, I'm who, but there is potentially a darker hidden agenda behind them, and you basically have to deal with them or solve exactly what is going on with them. So that's that one, but obviously you guys aren't doing that one because the campaign that you guys are doing at the moment is a completely sort of homebrew style campaign, the Crucible of Avarice. Depending on how well it's received, I might change the Crucible of Avarice into an actual genuine module. But to be honest, it's just more of a homebrew world that I'm just building for you guys at this point. But other than that, there are other ones in the works, such as Little Chibo. Huskonian is obviously the Huskonian campaign. That's also a big one, and I think it's called Rise of the Synthetic Dream, which is the one in Garrison.
Okay.
That is probably one of my favorite ones because that it does entail the dangers of powers in a now more technologically advanced society. Like, okay, so where do these fit in? Oh, these fit in very perfectly with new technology. How do we make that work for us in an even more expansive way? And then just trying to monopolize powers.
Good, but could you make it a bit more even?
Yes, that's good. But could we perhaps be a little bit more dastardly with this?
Can we sell it? Can we sell it at a higher rate?
How do we monetize these brain chips?
Exactly. Or better yet, can we monetize them and make them worse over time, but make sure that the ones that were made die away?
Hey, I don't want any reality in my tabletop RPGs, okay?
I definitely will be looking into the one for the Huskonian University of Heroes. That one I'm genuinely thinking about. So that's the thing. I should probably also mention, just as a last update, actually, that the 3 new Omegan powers that are replacing Nullification, because Nullification was known as Negation Child. That's basically completely being removed from the power system. Players will no longer be able to use it. It might be making a return as a singular boss character power only. But for now, it's being put on the shelf and left alone, and nobody will ever be able to play as it or play with it because it's just too broken. So that's that. The 3 powers that we'll be replacing is Toon Child. So just a heads up. All of the Omegan abilities are something child. Like, that's just what they're called. Like, as in like the child of like time, child of Animon, and so like that's what they're known as: Void Child, Animon Child, Time Child. So we have Toon Child, which basically it basically gives the character basically one of the powers from the Superhuman Power Compendium. But then to add some extra wackiness, it basically gives them a couple of extra abilities similar to that of a cartoon, such as like the ability to like have a favorite food and favorite beverage that for some reason gives you the ability of a healing power. For instance, like, oh yeah, I'll have some Scooby snacks, and suddenly my teeth have grown back. Or yeah, my favorite drink is beer, and now suddenly like I no longer have organ damage. That kind of cartoonish thing of like, oh yeah, I'll eat a block of cheese, and suddenly I now feel better, even though I was just shot a few times. So that's that. So like Toon Child will have all sorts of weird, wacky special abilities. That sort of defy physics in toonish ways. So it's not confirmed to be an actual cartoon. It's just that you have extra protagonistic toonish like defiances of the normal natural world. The other one is Mortality Child, which will allow the user to be able to have control over one of the 3 different aspects of mortality, such as biological life and nature itself, death and the concept of decay and loss of mortality, or even the loss of immortality, and finally the concept of the soul, psychic energy, and even the projection of one's own life force. Those abilities will be stashed in Mortality Child, which allows the user to have a few different abilities based on the concepts of life and death. And finally, we have Truth Child, the ability to allow the user to be able to speak something and it will become true. Basic reality warping abilities are limited to the fact that the user must be able to speak. If they do not speak or cannot speak, then they cannot use their powers. If they cannot finish the sentence or cannot finish the word that allows them to use or manipulate certain factors of reality, they will not be able to do so. Also, they are relatively quite open in the terms of what they can do, but there are still limitations. You cannot legitimately, instantly kill someone by just saying they are dead, and there are also other particular limitations, such as at the very beginning of the power, the only things that you can do are generate and alter as well as manipulate certain factors of the physical world, such as manipulating solids, liquids, and gases, as well as plasmas, as well as generating them and creating them through your words. However, they can only be within a very short radius of yourself, and again, you must say them, meaning that it will be audibly obvious to at least you or anyone within the radius of the particular ability. So that comes with some of its own downsides, and that also comes with some of its own incredible godlike abilities. All of the Omegan abilities have different varying levels of godlike power, but all of them end up in the same rough area. They all have an ability that is beyond what normal other abilities would grant them. But yes, that's all for now. I guess if there's anything else that you'd like to add to what I've just said, guys, you may do so.
Molten is a cool word.
Molten is a cool word, Alex. I'm glad that's your takeaway from this.
Yeah, that's if anything can take away from this Friday, it's like Nazis are bad and molten is a cool word.
Yes.
That has been my contribution.
You know what? Yeah. Stunned. What about yourself? What about yourself, Sam?
Dr. Doom is a pretty good uncle, I think.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to the Tabletop RPG Discussion or the Animite Tales podcast. Thank you very much, and obviously, as always, check us out at Animite Tales or hashtag Animite Tales on Twitter or on YouTube. Thank you very much for listening.
Bye.
See you in the future.
Have a wonderful night, and as always, ciao ciao for now.